You said exactly the right thing to the wrong person, and they looked at you like you were speaking a different language. You explained yourself clearly, you were calm, you were reasonable, and somehow they still walked away with the completely wrong idea of who you are. That happens to more people than you think. And if it happens to you regularly, there's a specific reason why, and it is not what you have been told. Most people spend their entire lives being misunderstood, not because they are bad communicators, not because they are difficult, but because nobody ever showed them the invisible gap between what they mean and what people actually receive. That gap is costing you relationships, opportunities, and a level of peace you have been searching for without even knowing what was missing. Before we go any deeper, if you are already feeling like this is about you, like this video was made specifically for your situation, there are related programs linked down below in the video description. People who apply what is inside them report that their relationships shift within days, not months. Do not scroll past that link without at least looking at it. Now let me show you what is really happening. Picture this. You have had a long, exhausting day, something went wrong, and you are carrying it quietly because you do not want to burden anyone. Someone close to you asks what is wrong. You say nothing, I am fine, and they believe you. They walk away, and suddenly you feel invisible. Suddenly you feel like this person who claims to care about you could not even see what was right in front of them. And the loneliness hits harder than the original problem ever did. Or maybe you were in a conversation, and you say something honest, something real, something that took courage to put into words. And the other person responds to the surface of what you said, completely missing the depth beneath it. You feel reduced, dismissed, like your most important parts are somehow untranslatable. This is what being chronically misunderstood actually feels like from the inside. It is not just frustrating, it is isolating in a way that is very hard to explain to someone who has never felt it. And here is what makes it worse. The smarter you are, the more deeply you feel, the more likely this is to happen to you. Because your inner world is layered and complex, and the average conversation does not have the tools to hold all of that. Studies in interpersonal communication show that people retain only about 7% of what we say through words alone. 7%. The rest is tone, body language, context, timing, emotional energy. So if you have been relying on your words to carry the full weight of your meaning, you have been fighting a losing battle without knowing it. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. When people misunderstand you repeatedly, something starts to happen inside. You begin to shrink. You start editing yourself before you even open your mouth. You choose safer versions of what you actually want to say. You stop expecting to be understood, and eventually you stop trying. And the tragedy is that the world never gets to see who you actually are. Let me give you another moment. Think about the last time you were misread in a conflict. Maybe you were trying to express hurt and it came across as aggression. Maybe you were being strong and it was read as coldness. Maybe you were asking for space and the other person heard rejection. Now think about the damage that caused. The hours spent over-explaining. The circular arguments that never actually resolved anything. The trust that eroded quietly in the background. How much energy has that cost you over the years? Multiply that across every relationship in your life, and you begin to understand the real price of this problem. Here's what the research actually tells us. People who develop strong communication clarity, the kind that bridges the gap between intention and perception, they report measurably stronger personal relationships, faster career advancement, lower daily stress, and a significantly higher sense of being truly known by the people in their lives. That is not a small thing. That is the difference between a life that feels lonely in a crowd and a life where connection feels natural and effortless. So what actually creates the misunderstanding in the first place? The first thing is assuming that people are reading the same context you are living in. You carry your full story inside you at all times, but everyone else only sees the chapter they are standing in front of. When you react to something, your reaction comes loaded with history, with past pain, with emotional weight that the other person has absolutely no access to. So what feels completely proportional to you looks extreme or confusing to them. The second thing is emotional flooding. When you are overwhelmed, your ability to translate your inner experience into clear language drops dramatically. What comes out is a fragment, a signal without enough information. And people fill in the blanks with their own assumptions, which almost never match your reality. The third thing is the difference between your communication style and the way the person in front of you receives information. Some people process through logic, some through emotion, some need direct language, some hear directness as attack. When these styles collide, without awareness, both people walk away feeling misunderstood, and both of them are right. Now here is where it gets interesting, because this is where people start to transform. The moment you understand that communication is not just about speaking, it is about translating, everything changes. You stop asking why they do not understand you and start asking, how can I make it easier for them to receive me? That shift in perspective is quiet. It is not dramatic. But the results it produces are profound. When you learn to lead with the emotional context before the content, something almost immediate happens. People soften, their defenses drop, they stop preparing their response and start actually listening. You go from talking at each other to genuinely meeting each other. And the relief you feel in that moment, the first time a conversation actually lands the way you intended, is unlike anything else. Researchers tracking relationship satisfaction found that couples and close friendships where both people felt consistently understood reported stress levels significantly lower than those where chronic misunderstanding was present. The difference in daily emotional experience was described as comparable to removing a background noise you had been living with so long you stopped noticing it. Imagine waking up and not having to brace yourself for being misread, not having to replay conversations in your head wondering where it went wrong, not having to work twice as hard to be half as heard. Imagine saying something vulnerable and having it land exactly the way you meant it. Imagine conflict that actually resolves instead of cycling. Imagine being in a room full of people and feeling genuinely seen instead of performing a version of yourself you think they can handle. That is not a fantasy. That is what happens when this specific skill set is developed with the right guidance. And people who have gone through the kind of deep structured work available in the programs linked in the video description below consistently describe it as getting years of their life back. Years. Not weeks. Years of energy returned because the constant tax of being misunderstood was finally lifted. Here is the most important thing I will say in this entire video. Being misunderstood is not a character flaw. It is not evidence that something is wrong with you. It is a skill gap. And skill gaps can be closed. The people who go their whole lives feeling invisible, feeling like they are always one conversation away from connection but never quite getting there, that is not their fate. That is just where the learning stopped. You are not broken. You are just working with incomplete tools. And that brings me to where we are right now. You have been searching for something, maybe you could not name it until this video, but it is this. The feeling of being truly understood by the people who matter most to you. Not sometimes, consistently, as a baseline of your life. The programs linked below in the video description exist for exactly that reason. They were created for people who are serious about this shift. People who are done settling for shallow connection and chronic miscommunication. Most people will scroll past this. Most people will nod along with this video and go back to the same patterns tomorrow. But you are still here, which means you are not most people. Everything you need to take the next step is right below this video. Do not make the mistake of waiting for a moment that feels more convenient. This moment is the one.